Hey people, welcome to the Run Testers. I'm Kieran.
I'm Nick.
I'm Mike.
And we're here at the New Forest Marathon weekend. And this weekend has a marathon and a half, a 10k, a 5k. I did the marathon yesterday. These boys are going to do the 10k today and I'm going to join them. And what are we going to be testing out there, guys?
So it's this watch here. This is the Garmin Forerunner 745. So before we get into the testing, let's talk a little bit about the 745 in terms of where it sits in Garmin's collection, what it can do, and what are the new features. First thing to talk about is the fact that the 745 is essentially going to be, and it looks like it's going to be replacing the 735, which has been around for a few years now. It's probably the last of the Forerunner range that hasn't been updated, so that's kind of where it sits. So in between the Forerunner 945 and something like the 645. Now, if you look at what's changed in terms of design comparing the 735 to the 745, I would say the big thing is a drop down in case size, and it's quite significant. So it definitely sits lighter and kind of smaller on your wrist. Now, it is actually technically thicker than the 735, but I don't think it's something that you're really going to kind of notice, and it's not something that we've kind of noticed. You're still getting full physical buttons, like a lot of the Forerunner watches. You're getting the heart rate monitor around the back, and you're getting this silicone strap, which you can remove and put on another one. So the big thing from a design perspective is that you're getting a smaller case, you're getting the same screen resolution and size as the Forerunner 245. So there's new things that have kind of been incorporated from other watches, and that's kind of the key kind of design headlines for the 745. Now, it's still a running and a kind of triathlon-centric watch, and in terms of what you can do, you're getting a lot of the stuff you can do in Forerunner watches anyway. So it'll track your indoor and outdoor running. You can pair to heart rate monitor, chest straps. You're getting more smartwatch features that you wouldn't have got on the 735. So things like music. You're also getting better in terms of notification support and payments. Now, in terms of the new features that are unique to the 745, there's a few things. So the first thing is you've got a dedicated track mode, which basically promises to more accurately track your track sessions, which is something we've seen Chorusly recently. You're also getting suggested workouts, which how that essentially works is it looks at your kind of historical data and the workouts that you log, and will give you recommended workouts essentially. Now, this only works for runners and cyclists at the moment, and hopefully maybe this is a kind of feature that will roll out to other Garmin watches. The other big feature to talk about here is Recovery Advisor. Now, a lot of Forerunner watches already have these kind of recovery insights. Now, where it differs on the 745 is it's now looking at your daily activity as well as things like stress and sleep and heart rate. And what it will do is give you some kind of deeper recovery insights to kind of shape or influence when you should do that next kind of big running session or long, big run. So those are kind of the headline things in terms of what 745 does, how it kind of compares to 735, and where it kind of sits in the Garmin range. Now we've got a sense of the headline features, let's get into the testing when we took on the New Forest 10k and marathon. So I think some of the general things, like just in terms of how it's going to track, we're going to look at how well the battery life handles up, and then we're also going to have a look at some of the kind of new training features that you'll kind of had to dig into after the race.
And also, before we go out and run, 10Ks, hit me with a time. What are you going for?
I don't know, it's very grassy. I'm just going to try and keep it sub 35.
Finish. That's it. That's the goal.
Right, we'll see you on the other side.
So in general, the Forerunner 745 performed pretty well when it came to GPS accuracy during the race. It logged about 10.16k overall, but this was, an off-road race, bit of tree cover, lots of turns, weird ground. So I was pretty impressed with that, especially as my stride pod linked to my Garmin Fenix. on my other wrist had a nightmare, was way off. I couldn't use that for pacing at all. The pacing was fairly smooth on the 745. I used the lap pace stat to kind of get an overall picture of that current kilometre I'm on, and it did pretty well all round, I'd say. Actually, it's hard to judge because the kilometre markers on the race were a bit all over the place, unless I was running sub 3 for the first couple of K, which I definitely wasn't. So overall, pretty impressive GPS accuracy. It was certainly useful for me to help pace the race, even though mostly I was running on feel. Heart rate actually was less good. It was kind of okay for the first 5K, but then it really went a bit ballistic in the second half of the race. It had me up near kind of 190, 200 beats per minute. I just don't go that high with my heart rate. I kind of top out somewhere in the 170s. Had a heart rate strap on linked to my Phoenix, so I could see the kind of disparity, and that really throws off the kind of training effect you get from this, and also kind of your recovery afterwards. So I was, full 5 out of 5 for aerobic, and very high for anaerobic training as well. So I would definitely say you need to pair a chest strap to this to get the most out of it, but just because there's so many useful training insights. So yeah, that's definitely the way I'd go with it, and but GPS accuracy was good.
Well, me personally, I ran with 745 on one wrist and the Garmin Fenix 6 Pro on the other. So kind of looking at hopefully having a similar kind of tracking performance. And I also had my zone chest strap to test the heart rate monitor accuracy as well. Now what I found, having looked in the data in Garmin Connect afterwards, is that there is a bit of a difference in terms of the data that these two watches brought up. The first one being distance, so the 745 tracked a bit more in terms of the distance, which affected things like the average pace. Now the breakdown of splits and stuff was generally fine, but there's definitely some differences there in the data. In terms of heart rate monitoring, actually it was pretty good for me. Near identical in terms of the average and the max readings, and if you kind of look at the graphs, they're pretty consistent in terms of those peaks and drop-offs, or just generally keeping steady. So in terms of that kind of running data, not identical to another Garmin watch that I use, not crazily out and wildly inaccurate, but definitely interesting to see how that kind of evolves in the more runs and kind of more testing that I do.
So I did 2 initial run tests with the 745. I ran a marathon and I put it up against the Fenix 6 Pro and the new Pro heart rate strap to see how it would fare for heart rate. And actually on that note, the 745 matched beat for beat my average and my max heart rate to this chest strap, so that's a good performance there. Also things like the cadence and the stride length are also pretty much a dead for dead match. So overall, it did really well in that marathon test, over 26.2 miles. Then I followed that up actually just with the optical heart rate on the Fenix 6 versus the optical heart rate on the 745. And now that was a whole different story. The optical heart rate on the 745 tended to read much lower than the Fenix 6 Pro. In fact, and I'll give you the stats here, the Fenix 6 Pro gave me a 158 average and a 179 max over a fast 10k, and the 745 gave me a 150 versus 173 beats per minute over that same 10k. Now in terms of the zones, the 745 had me for a much greater percentage. It was actually 30% more in zone 3 and zone 4 than the Fenix 6 Pro, which had me in the upper zones a lot more. Now from that 10k that I did, my overall feeling was that the Fenix 6 was actually more correct. I did the 10k immediately the day after I'd done the marathon, and I ran a really sort of decent pace, and actually that grew to kind of 6:30, 6:40 minute miles was somewhere near my limit towards the end of that. So I was pushing it, and I would say that overall the Fenix 6 Pro was a little bit more correct on that. So perhaps to take away that with the one sort of short run that I've done, is that the FR 745 might be coming in a little bit light when it reads heart rate.
So one of the new things on the Garmin Forerunner 745 is suggested workouts each day based on kind of your recent training history, your kind of overall Garmin profile. I haven't checked mine today yet, obviously I'm doing a 10k race, but we'll see what I'm going to be suggested. Rest! That's a bad sign. So the reason I've got rest is on my shakeout run yesterday, the watch did not lock onto my heart rate, it locked onto my cadence, which meant I had a ridiculously high heart rate for a very easy run, and now it's saying I have to rest. So that's one of these problems, these training features. If you don't use a chest strap, you are going to get some dust suggestions if your heart rate's off on a single run.
So I've just scrolled through. My suggested workout is kind of base run, 51 minutes at quite a slow pace.
And how does that fit in with what you've been doing in training?
Well, I mean, I haven't really had a very structured training. I've done kind of some slower runs. I didn't run yesterday, so I mean, it's a weekend. It's a lot, you know. I should be doing a long run or a slower run. So I mean, it kind of works. We'll see how it fits in with kind of the races afterwards. So
obviously I ran the New Forest Marathon yesterday. I did a 3:51 and it was pretty hot and heavy. And so today I've got my suggested workout. It's a nice little recovery of 24 minutes. That sounds about right, although I'm going to go and run 10k. It's going to take me a little bit more than 24, so but that's actually, you know, day after a marathon, that's quite a good recommendation.
So in terms of my battery life, I've got notifications switched on. I took it off the charge Friday evening to wear it sleep for that night. Since then I've done a 40-minute easy run and then the 35-minute 10k plus my warm-up, so that was about 10-15 minutes and I'm at 76%, so still got plenty left.
cool. So in terms of what I've got from battery life, now I charged it on a Friday, so 100% on Friday morning. It's now Sunday. I've done 1 hour run and I've now done this 10k race, so I'm now down to 41%. It was 49% before the race, so that's an 8% drop off a 40 odd minute run, so not fantastic numbers, and also that's notifications running from my phone as well, so let's see what it's like after a few weeks and where we're at with the battery life then.
I took this 745 off the charge on Friday night. Since then I've done one 1 hour run, I've done one just short 4 hour marathon, and I've just done a 50-minute 10k here at the New Forest Marathon, and I am now down to 56% in that time with notifications switched off, so you know, we're sort of about halfway in around 2 days. So just looking at the recovery recommendations, this weekend, yesterday I ran a marathon. Today I had just done a 10k, and what I'm getting now is I've got recovery of 72 hours, and it says I'm recovering as expected at the moment. I guess I might have expected something different from having put in that extra load after having done a marathon, but I guess this now in real time is reading how well I'm recovering from those two efforts. But yeah, that's my read after doing that kind of effort, and it's an interesting thing.
Okay, there you have it. That is our kind of initial running thoughts, race thoughts on the Garmin Forerunner 745. Now, we've obviously got a fair bit more testing to do. I think the general consensus of the team at the moment is it's a solid enough watch option for running. I just think the pricing, where it sits in the Garmin range and where it sits next to other watches that are actually significantly cheaper and actually offer similar features. So we're thinking things like the Chorus Pace 2, which we all were big fans of. It's also only a little bit cheaper than the Garmin Forerunner 945, which gets you obviously extra features like mapping and just those kind of richer kind of metrics and analysis. So yeah, definitely more testing to be done. Good first impressions so far. Interesting to see how those extra analysis features work out, but yeah, we will keep you posted when we've finished our full testing. If you have any comments, questions about 745, let us know in the comments. As always, like and subscribe, hit the bell wherever that is to get the latest videos, and we'll see you for the next Run Testers video.